So you want to play Mutants and Masterminds, but you also kind of want to be a dick. Well, have I got the book for you. So the Mutants and Masterminds 3rd edition core book doesn't have a whole lot of advice for running your campaign. There's some, it's not a lot, probably why they have their own book. Actually, I kind of like this setup because it makes the book nice and thin and a lot cheaper than, you know, that giant f***ing textbook I have for Star Wars. No, wait, those 2 giant f***ing textbooks I have for Star Wars. There's actually 3. Some people have 3 giant f***ing textbooks for Star Wars. Anyway, this one, if you feel like you don't need a lot of GM advice, you can just skip it. Or if this isn't enough, then you come to this one. That's already I have good things to say about M&M. That's refreshing. I like that. That's nice. Great. Okay, GM guide. First, we got a section on settings, and they have... I actually really like the organization of the settings. See, they have comic book with like time periods or ages. That's the word. You know, like the Golden Age, Silver Age, Bronze, Modern Age. You know, all these ages spanning the decades, signifying changes in comic books in general. So they talk about different settings within that context. They have the Golden Age setting, and that has a lot of stuff on World War II style campaigns and that kind of setting. You know, if you want to make a campaign like the Invaders, you know, the original Human Torch and Captain America, all that fun stuff. And they even have equipment. Now, I believe the Golden Age World War II setting has the most equipment out of all of them because they have ground vehicles, water vehicles, air vehicles, freighters, battle cruisers, escort carrier, aircraft carrier, different types of tanks, whatever the f*** a half-track is. Even the guns, they got sawed-off shotgun, skeet shotgun. If you're ever wondering what the stat and cost difference was between those two in this game, well, yeah, now you know. Mortars, anti-tank, field artillery, just the list. Just this whole big, this is all equipment. And in general, the personal equipment, the guns at least, tend to be a bit on the weaker side. I guess to better fit with lower power level heroes that it recommends to have for this type of campaign. And when I say it recommends, I mean the core rulebook recommends, because I am not seeing any power level recommendations for these settings. It has equipment, it has trends, it has a general idea of the type of tone, and certain tropes, and blah blah blah. We got the Silver Age talks about social issues, apparently that's when... No, Bronze Age. Bronze Age talks about social issues, black power, substance abuse, I talk like a f***ing on of substance, youth empowerment, blah blah blah. Iron Age has shades of gray, leather and latex apparently, yada yada yada. But they don't have whatever my main point was. What was my point? But they don't have the recommended power levels. I mean, yeah, you already have them, but still, it would have been convenient just to put it in. Just put it in there. Unless it is in there and I couldn't find it. I could just be an idiot. I don't know. Either I'm annoyed or I'm an idiot, and I'm also annoyed at being an idiot. Anyway, that's the settings section. Really, a lot of this, I'm not a big fan of. Because I'm not a big comic book fan, but I like superheroes in general. Grew up in the golden age of the superhero cartoon in the 90s. A lot of great stuff there. And of course, I like the movies just fine. So I have roughly your average nerd's level understanding of these types of stories and tropes and characters. So I really didn't get a whole lot out of this book as far as advice. Because really it just read to me as, remember that one episode where they did the thing? Do that. You know, they didn't reference anything specific, really. But I remembered it and, oh yeah, do that. I don't really need a book to tell me to... Remember that one character? Make another character like him. Okay. And, you know, your usefulness for this type of advice is going to scale based off of your general knowledge of the whole superhero thing. So, if you're a lifelong comics fan and you read them regularly, even now, that's going to hurt a lot of the value of the book for you. And that goes for not just this section I'm talking about, but the book in general. There's a lot of advice that, you know, I just didn't find that useful. It's nice to be reminded, oh, right, that one episode, that's what they're describing, or they're describing that one character. I remember that one character, he was kind of cool. Let's make a character like him. I guess it's nice to be reminded, but really, that's not enough to get me to like this book so far. Especially because Eminem really suffers from the... Okay, I need to bitch about Eminem. It really suffers from this issue where it wants to be a narrative-focused game, right? You know, it's more about the story and the characters and just kind of, you know, go with it, whatever. Except it's very inconsistent with that. You know, there are times when I feel like it's got a decent amount of crunch to it and rules and, you know, is really complicated, especially when I'm making characters. But other times when it will tell me to do a thing, or it will reference a rule that I think exists, or it seems like it's referencing a rule that exists, but it doesn't. Like in here, there's something where, the two-handed advantage or benefit. You can ignore the penalty you get from using your offhand. Okay, how do you decide your offhand? It's not in there. Took me forever to find that it's not in there, but it's not in there. What could the penalty be? It's not in there. You know, circumstance modifiers. What they have on circumstance modifiers is the closest, you know, you just sort of estimate. It just feels inconsistent with this game. This book is no different. There are big chunks of it that just really feel like, do whatever. And then once in a while they'll have rules, and it's like, holy shit, it's like a rule book I'm reading for a game with rules in it. Holy shit, you know? So the advice, a lot of the advice in this book, not a big fan. Depends on you as a person, how useful it is. Though I really did like, and this may just be an example of where my line is of knowledge and not knowledge for these types of stories. I really like the section early on in the blue section, the settings section, which talked about society and how powers affect society and ideas for integrating them into society in a way that's more so than what I see in the movies, at least. You know, I'm not really up to date on the comics, but from what I know, I read a few comics a few years back, and I don't remember it being so integrated. Like, it felt very, like, here's our world, and also we have superheroes and villains. And there's not a lot of blending of these two things, and how much powers have an effect on our world and our society, how we view things. I like the little tidbits on that, but most of the advice wasn't a huge help for me. Now, what's this? Oh, yeah, we got 3 big sections on making villains in all sorts of ways. I hope you like making villains, because that's all this book is about for the most part. Okay, so first of all, the Adversary section, which is a lot of just general advice for any and all kinds of bad guys. They have different types of enemies: henchmen, lieutenants, master villains, and even the omnipotent villains, the power level X, which Power Profiles talked about a bit, and what kind of power levels these types of enemies would have in relation to your heroes. They also have a little bit on some basic villain types, you know, the brute, schemer, a manipulator, which I guess are different somehow. They also talk about different roles they might play, like dark reflection, a strange family, a villain who's a forbidden love. That could be fun. There's a pretty extensive section on motivations, not just what their goal is, but how they justify it. There's also a pretty helpful section on tactics with your villain, which included some much needed optional minion rules, which allows you to use your minions in battle with your main villain so that you can counter the heroes ganging up on your main guy while ignoring the minions. And they have plenty of general GM advice for single villains, villain teams, and even villain organizations. Next is one of my favorites, the Archetype section. This big old thick blob of purple in the middle of the book. It goes through all these different villain archetypes. You know, the assassin, the savage, the brute, the manipulator, and they have everything from basic stats to name ideas or even common tropes and types of stories for that particular archetype. You know, the brute might actually have a heart of gold, but he's being manipulated by some smaller asshole who insists that he's the brute's friend. And then the brute attacks Superman for hurting the brute's friend, and, you know, that old story. They have a lot of stuff like that. They also have different types of tactics that particular archetype might employ, as well as different modifications, like variations of it. Like, here is the savage, his powers are based off of some animal, he's kind of a mindless idiot, and his powers could be based off of an ant, a dog or wolf, earthworm, yeah, I'm doing that, octopus, squid, spider, whale, etc. And you just apply these stat modifications and new powers to the base stats that it comes with. And of course they have a general adversary section, which, as I said before, I'm not a big fan of in general, but if it doesn't annoy you as much as it did me, it is quite larger. In fact, I believe the section on animals alone is bigger than all of the generic adversaries and even NPCs they had in here. I'm pretty sure. It's comparable. Plus they have ninjas and cultists and dinosaurs. There's even a wonderful template for making a zombie version of anything else. So yes, you can have a zombie T-Rex. In fact, that's the example they give, is a zombie T-Rex. That's kind of great. In the plot section, we have different goals they want to accomplish and how they go about doing it in great detail. Like, they might want conquest, to take over the planet. They could do that with a threat via a doomsday device or bioweapon, computer crash, maybe mind control, there's some kind of invasion going on, or reality alteration, that one's fun. Maybe they just want to destroy. How do they destroy? Why do they destroy? Kidnapping, that's another plot. Superhuman victims, how do you handle that? Extortion, murder, theft, all different types of theft. They even have a chart, a D100 chart for different M&M adventure ideas. That's kind of cool. I probably wouldn't leave my campaign up to that, but still, it's cool. Ooh! Challenges! This is a really great chapter. The challenges section makes me feel like I'm reading a different RPG. There are just wall-to-wall rules and crunch, and what do you do with an avalanche, or collapse, or earthquake? How does heat, flame, smoke affect your players? Floods. What to do if they're swept away? Fog, lava. Lava! They have lava statted in the book. There is lava I never would have thought that this is the game that would one day have lava statted. I really didn't think they would bother. This is good stuff. Rain, snow, sleet, hail. All of these things. Quicksand, storms. I want to name every single headline. Just, I never want to leave this chapter. Is what hurricanes, tornadoes. Close attacks and range attacks underwater. Those work differently. How do they work differently? Do you know? I know because I read the book. This is so great. Light wind, moderate wind, strong wind. I could do this all f***ing day. Man, I am so happy. I wish what I wouldn't give if the whole game felt a little bit more like this chapter. Damn, dude. Damn. They even have a whole section on traps, you know, big death traps, all different types, kind of a classic superhero thing. And they talk about evading traps, figuring it out, how do you escape it. There's actually a series of checks that your team has to do. That could be interesting, make for some interesting encounters. And a short section on optional rules, kind of, but not always rules. They have these fighting styles where it's like, use these 6 advantages, and that represents jujitsu, or karate, or aikido, ninjutsu, sumo. Oh my god, I could make a sumo guy, that would be great. These advantages make this style, I guess. That's not really optional rules. They do have stuff like fame or an infamy meter, you know, reputation system. And you can do checks to see if your NPCs recognize the heroes, and what their base reputation is, how that grows. And if they do recognize your hero, there are certain bonuses and penalties to interaction checks. We also have a wealth system, which buying equipment's not a big part of this game, but with this, it can be. You do a wealth check to see if you can afford to buy a piece of equipment, but don't worry, you can make some cheaper purchases as a routine check, so you don't have to, you know, roll a check for every single little thing. That would be annoying as f***. There are some alternate die rolling rules, which will make your rolls a little less random. Couple options there. Next, we have another favorite section of mine, the one on villain layers. Basically, you got a map. It's got a bunch of numbers on it. Numbers relate to a thing, and thing has a paragraph saying what you could do with it in an adventure. Like the Ferris wheel is this big, and it weighs this much when it's empty, and this much when it's full. And oh no, it might become detached. This is the strength you need to stop it. They also have a couple variations. That amusement park could be abandoned, or it could be full of people. And they do that with a whole lot of different layers. There's a lot of variation here. But my personal favorite is the subway station. Sure, it's maybe not as sexy as, say, a missile silo, but it tells you how to stop a speeding train, which, even if you don't use this particular layer, is useful in any game. That is such a great classic superhero thing. So there is a lot of really good stuff in this book, but there's also a lot of fluff, and that other half is going to be less valuable to you the more comic book and superhero knowledge you have. As far as I'm concerned, your top priority for buying a source book for M&M, if you are going to buy one, still is power profiles, and probably is always going to be power profiles. But after that, at least half of this book is going to be pretty useful to just about anyone, and likely even more than that. Really, it's not a bad investment. But if you're a huge comic book fan and this isn't your first time GMing or role-playing, it's definitely going to be a bit harder to recommend. Alright, that's it for today. If you like this video and you want to see more, come back every Monday, Wednesday, Friday for a new video. Unless I am late on a video, at which point, just come back. Just always be coming back. ABCB, always be coming back for videos. And watch my videos. Because you love this channel. Yay! Alright.